So I'm back. This time we've got Rodri against Eternally, and I wasn't really gonna narrate Eternally's game because he's on my team, but I guess it was a pretty cool game, and there are some things I wanted to point out, and I think this is probably one of the best played games yet on both sides in NU. So I mean, I'll give in. I think I'll probably end up just going through all the games honestly. So why not? Looking at the teams, Eternally is a very standard team. I'm not gonna hype it up too much. I really liked it personally because I played a hand in just kind of saying, "Oh, I approve of this." I Eternally built the team fully. It's totally his. He gets credit for that, of course, but I did like it, the idea behind it, etc. Rodri's team is pretty bizarre, if you want to be honest. I mean, shit. I guess this is like a disclosure. Like the team beat my player. Rodri won the game, and I don't want to sound like a sore loser. I don't want to put down someone who I respect very much in Rodriblutar, and I don't want to be rude, but I think the best way to do this would be to be honest. So please don't hate me. But like the team doesn't make much sense. So first off, you've got two stealth rock weeks, three stealth rock weeks in Vanillux, Aerodactyl, and Golbat. So having dual defog does make sense in Golbat and Sylvia Steel, but the fact of the matter is that having Golbat and Sylvia Steel as your defoggers means that your team is pretty much dead weight against any remotely bulky team, thus meaning that your lone means of breaking it would be hoping that they don't have Zatu or like install like Articuno where they could remove the rocks from the Torterra, or hoping that they didn't have a Specs Ice Stream counter, which every single bulky team should have. So basically, this team is the biggest dead weight against any non-offense slash balance team. Second off, um, Golbat being used in this way, especially with Sylvia Steel, is just really weird. You basically take the two least consistent high upside, low floor um, removers and kind of throw them together when they also lack synergy. It also makes this team ridiculously weak to something like Vikavolt. I mean, shit, every time it comes in on either Golbat or on Torterra or on Slowbro, it gets a kill. And I feel like there was a much better way to kind of align this team defensively to the extent that A, it would have had a bit more of a less passive, do nothing ish feel besides Ice Cream against the more fatter teams, and B, it would have just had a more smoother play against offensive teams. And on top of that, I mean, Aerodactyl's a bad Pokemon in the tier. Like, it's just not good. But like, I get wanting to experiment, especially like early on its time in the tier. It's like fine, but apparently the set was like Z Rock or just not Z at all, but not leftovers or choice band either. Like what? Like what's it even trying to hit? Like it was just really bizarre. Um, and I don't really see the thought process or the synergy. It just feels like he kind of wanted to use Specs Ice Cream and then just kind of fit on defensive foursome in Slowbro, Torterra, Sylvia Steel, Golbat without a ton of thought for synergy. Like Vikavolt does really well. Magmortar just destroys his team. Hell, I mean, your main counterplay to Combine Delphox even is just Aerodactyl using Pursuit. Like, I feel like this team could be much better done given the same concept or premise if you just use Steelix as your stealth rocker, and then have like a Whimsicott as your defogger, and then just kind of have like offensive slash standard fillers, such as maybe like an Incineroar, and then the last spot would just be like a Scarf Pissimian, for example. Um, I mean, hey, I pretty much just changed this team and made it into the standard ice cream build that we've seen a lot in open and in the ladder. You pretty much have like 4 or 5 of those 6, no matter what. But I feel like given Ice Cream's lack of clear-cut defensive utility, and also the potent nature of wanting to get it in with U-turn Volt Switch, makes it so that team building around it is quite limited. And I think Rodriblutar kind of has a bit more of an experimental taste here, and I think I'm not a fan of it. However, it did match up quite well against Eternity's team, which is why I'm saying, okay, don't hate me, because yeah, it did work, but like, would it work consistently? No, not at all. I mean, if you want me to be honest, this team was kind of questionable, but it worked well here because A, you've got Torterra itself, which is one of the hardest counters to Specs Heliolisk, which is actually a good bring by Rodriblutar. I just don't like it here. I feel like these teams kind of need to trade off hard checking Heliolisk for actually having a full on counterplay of some sort to everything like Vikavolt, Magmortar, etc. Magmortar is something eternally like frequents, by the way, too. So like that's kind of why it's a bit odd to me. But anyway, on top of that, the Helmize couldn't really do much with the combination of Steel and Golbat, which really should never be on the same team. But I mean, hey, look at that. Honestly, it could have even compressed it to a Vileplume and then a Zatu, or even Vileplume plus Steel, and then you change the Torterra to something that actually beats other ice cream that's not Steel, because Steel is such a shitty check to opposing ice cream, considering that it gets in every time on Slowbro or Golbat, and then it like comes in like 3 times, and then it's like already worn out because no leftovers, no recovery. So yeah, I mean that's another thing this team kind of strikes me as a bit weak to. For example, Internally's matchup wasn't all bad though. Just Swords Dance and Incineroar actually potentially be quite threatening. However, he would have to maintain some level of getting rocks up, which Steelix actually does beat both Steel and Golbat 1v1, which is another reason why I'm not really fond of this pairing, considering Steelix is by far the most common Stealth Rocker. And I mean, shit, it also struggles with like Piloswine and Rhydon. Like, you see what I'm getting at? It just seems like a bunch of bad metagame. But, so yeah, that's something. If Eternally could manage to get rocks up, especially if this isn't Super Fang Golbat, which it turns out to be, but it wasn't a huge deal. If Eternally could get rocks up and then kind of get U-turns going with the combination of Zatu, Passimian, or Volt switches with the Helios, although I feel like those are going to be at a premium, seeing this Torterra is going to be able to block them all. But I mean, hell, Hyper Voice can stall Synthesis as well, and Synthesis with Hail. Oh yeah, another big no-no. You can't really use Torterra on vanilla teams because you need the recovery, but Hail cuts it off. Like that's just like I only use the only grass with Synthesis that I use on ice cream teams would be a Choice Banded to Helmize because it doesn't rely on the recovery that you got to get cut with. But anyway, aside from those notes, I do think Eternally's team has some vulnerabilities too. I think that the main thing also would be opposing Swords Dance Incineroar because it comes in on Anchor or Zatu and pretty much does get a kill. But I think that's kind of hard to avoid in this metagame. So that's kind of why I wasn't big on that being an issue. It's Rodriblutar's team, but he didn't really face it. But I also think that bulky cores with Torterra are just kind of buzzkill to him because you can't really get. You're pretty much playing 5v6 unless you get a crit with Hyper Voice. And a lot of them run shell armor, so it's kind of impossible as well, which makes that annoying. But anyway, I'm just going to pause for 1 second and then I'll get into the actual game itself. Anyway, I'm back, so let's get into the actual game itself. So, Golbat lead for Rodri versus the Passimian, which is a nice lead. If Super Fang, you 100% clear here, and we see the Steelix come in, and yep, there we go. So it's already down a bit above half. So that's a nice start from Rodriblutar, and another one just as rocks go up. I mean, I imagine if you're Eternally and you have like Curse, you go for it here just to threaten it, because then you could rocks for free next turn no matter what. Yeah, and you see the rocks there. And now we see a heavy slam as Super Fang chips it and the Slowbro comes in for free, but rocks are up. But really nice play there from Rodri, and I think that Eternally kind of has this awkward predicament where he doesn't really have a ton of switch-ins into potentially like Assault Vest or Max Special Attack Slowbros. But he does have enough to where, I mean, A, Toxic on something like Zatu, and then kind of recovering up. Helios comes in Scald, but the Dehelmize and the Fire Blast kind of does blow, because like you don't really have a ton of Fire Blast switch-ins from Slowbro if you think about it. Which is actually quite an awkward predicament for a lot of bulky offensive teams that lack, like Guzzlord, for example. Anyway, I feel as if this is a really good start for Rodri. I mean, you get the chip on Dehelmize, which the health doesn't really matter on, because I mean, it's pretty much walled by the Golbat, but you kind of put Eternally on a back foot in a game where he really needs to keep the tempo up if he wants to win. So that's something of note. But anyway, let's get on with the next turn. So we're just going to see Steel comes in here, probably just to take like a Power Whip or a knockoff. And yeah, it's going to come in on a crit knockoff, and then it's banned. That actually sucks for Rodri. But anyway, we're just going to see a Defog here, and then another knockoff. The crit sucked, but I don't really think the Sylvia was going to be that much healthier, although it would kind of remove its ability to come in on rocks later. We're going to see a Nightshade here and a Pursuit from Rodri. That's a really nice play from Eternally here, because Pursuit struck me as pretty obvious, especially because Choice Band is the norm on Aerodactyl, and really still the only set I'd ever like come close to running. But again, let's move on with it. Pursuit, and that reveals that it's not banned, but also like 99% of the time you're expecting the Zatu to switch out and go to the Passimian, or I guess you could see the Steelix come in. I'm trying to scroll over to the health, but I fucking can't, which sucks. But shit, can you guys hear the vacuum in the background? Probably. Oh well, that's fine. Hopefully, it won't have to redo this. But anyway, yeah. So the pursuit was kind of obvious to click there because like you feel this is always going to switch out and people are just getting the Stone Edge, but Eternally saw through that, got off the Rocky Helmet chip, and B the U-turn damage. So that's like of vital importance for him, I'd say. And Psimmon comes in here now, and I think that's just a pretty safe U-turn. But he goes for a knock. He knocks into a Culver Berry. I guess he figured this might be a solid best given Fire Blast. And also the fact that if you have a physically defensive Golbat and you've got no switch-ins to stuff like Magmortar and you've got a Survive Steel, which is a shitty ice cream check, so you want to like sponge blizzards with something else. But I guess Rodri was a bit more paranoid of physical attackers. If I was using this team, I'd definitely use Assault Vest Pro too. But like, I see what you're saying. I still have U-turn just because it gets you another Dehelmize time to come in, and then you pretty much claim something with knockoff. But I think the knock was fine there. It just didn't work out. Now we'll see the Heliolisk on a Scald, so that got him back up. That's nice. Now I imagine we just see a Hyper Voice here. We just got the Torterra set, and yep, it appears to be specially defensive, leaving it at 58. We're going to see another, just to bait a double sense of this, I believe. We probably see the Zatu here. Yep, Zatu comes in on another one. So yeah, it's down to 6 now. And let's see what is the... I imagine we see U-turn here. Yep, just to get safe from the Aerodactyl. Now this is down to 29%, which is really big. Maybe we see U-turn here, but no, another knockoff. This one I really disagreed with. I think that once you knew the set, U-turn was fine. Anyway, we see the Fire Blast there. That actually is nice because it forces a Recover to get in the heal is safe on a non-Fire Blast turn, so that's good. And now we see the same sequence. Yeah, we're just trying to get the recovery away. And now we see the Zatu come in on an Earthquake, which is really big, I'd say. Because now this is potentially crippled, but we're going to see a Roost instead. I guess he figured he prioritizes his health, so he's not in like pursuit range or whatever. And then he gets a Toxic off on Slowbro, which is a nice play. There, Nightshade, and we're going to hope no Scald Burn, but instead we're going to see a Fire Blast for a mere 35%. I guess we could see U-turn or Roost here, but we're going to see the U-turn down to 40% and a Slack Off. Yep, so Helios gets in again. We're going to see the same sequence, I'd imagine, with the Hyper Voice. Yep, it's going to do a bit under half, 44% roughly, and we're going to force recovery, and then the Helmize comes in, interestingly enough. We're going to see the Zatu double switch. I feel as if going hard Zatu may have just been better. But regardless, the Vanillix comes in, and we're going to see a Nightshade. I feel like U-turn would have been better there. I don't know if U-turn actually killed the Silvally. I gather that it probably didn't, given that he went for Nightshade. But, like, at the same time, it's not really going to be the end of the world if your U-turn doesn't kill, because you're probably going to be slower, given that Silvally like runs, and usually it's probably minus like speed IV kind of stuff. And then you get Helioskin and just fire up a Hyper Voice and kind of provoke the same sequence. Because you still wouldn't be in Torterra range, no likelihood. But anyway, Nightshade does get some chip on the Vanillix, but I think I probably wouldn't for U-turn there, but I don't think that would qualify as a misplay so much as something that just you could go either way with. But yeah, anyway. So now we get Incineroar coming in on a Blizzard, and actually, you know, what I would have done here was I would have fought it the Steelers. I felt like you were kind of suffocated, but Eternally made a smart play in not doing that, because while you're pretty much down to half after the Specs Blizzard does so much to you, you still can get rocks up later, which could be of vital importance, especially considering that you beat the Golbat 1v1, and the Savage Steel dies to rocks. So if you get them up, that's like 6-5 right off the bat, which is nice. And on top of this, you get the Incineroar, which is a threatening Pokemon right now. So let's see what he does with that. Now that he's down at half. You probably can't barely take another Blizzard, honestly. So we can see Darkest Lariat into the Golbat. 33%. And now we'll see the Heliolisk come in here on a Roost. I imagine we just see another Hyper Voice here. It's just the first chip damage on the Heliolisk, also worth noting. But anyway, we see the Zatu coming on the Torterra. Nicely done by Eternally. And we see a U-turn here, positioning himself nicely to get that Steelix in and get those rocks up for once and for all. Hopefully. Super Fang, rocks. Now, the thing about Super Fang Golbat is it still can't kill Steelix. It could kind of kill Rhydon because no leftovers, but like, it's just not great in my opinion. And now we see a Curse here, and I imagine we see another rock. Yup, rock. Now, what are we going to see from Silvally? Is it goes for Surf and it kills. Why is it Surf? Wait. So, it's running Surf? I thought that was just Flamethrower the whole time. That's bizarre. I mean, You think Surf is mainly there to target opposing Incineroar and Rhydon as opposed to hitting Ferroseed, but like you know what? I think that's fine actually. I think that Surf is fine. It's just that then it kind of leaves you really vulnerable to Ferroseed if it's not Flamethrower. But I don't know the full stats. I think that's fine actually. It's actually pretty cool because you get to hit the Incineroar without just being passive. So yeah, that's neat. I think that's actually a cool attack by Rodri there. But anyway, now you're pretty much this is just dead Silvally unless you get a defog off with the Golbat. But we're just gonna see a U-turn here, and now we're gonna get the Helioskin, and now rocks are up too, so it's gonna kind of push the issue. So he fighters the Silvally Steel, making it a 5-5 game. Nicely done by eternally maneuvering around. The Golbat comes in, it's at 67%, and a Hyper Voice here doing over half, which is Roost, indicating to me that I don't really agree with this play. But the Torterra, yeah, Torterra's at full. Why not go to Torterra? And anyway, he pretty much just loses a ton of Golbat health. He's at 12%. Now the Torterra comes in, he's going to waste another Synthesis. Yeah, so now we see the Xatuan again. We kind of have another one of those turns that is going to come down to what you want to do here. Do you want to let the Ice Cream come in on a non-U-turn and then kind of give up in Pokemon? Or do you want to U-turn out and try to get momentum but risk Torterra potentially going for Stealth Rock? So that's something Eternally really has to think about here. So let's see what Eternally makes of that. He's going to go to Slowbro actually instead, kind of as a middle ground. I actually think Vanilluxe would have been a bit better there. But I think he didn't want to come in on U-turn because then you kind of get trapped in the vortex, which is fine. We're seeing Nightshade's trade here, and I think we see a U-turn on this turn. And Helios is going to come in on Scald. No, comes in on Fire Blast, which is really good for Rodri, as now potentially could be in pursuit range or another Fire Blast if you get rocks up or whatever. It just gets chipped, and that's nice. But now we're going to see a couple Hyper Voices here, which forces 2 recoveries from Rodri's side, which is nicely done by Eternally, in my opinion. I think the risk versus reward on that was good because the worst case scenario, you leave it like really low. Anyway, we see a Nightshade here from Eternally, and that's great because now it puts him in a 5-4 position. But the Aerodactyl comes in, and big play here. And honestly, this 50-50 probably could have been one of the things that would have saved the game for Eternally. But Rodri came out on top. I feel like if I'm Rodri here, I always go for the rock move. So like I get it because last time they stayed in, and the Z-Rock threatens the entire team. I mean, shit, even Passimian would be like taking like point where it dies to pretty much any attack. But regardless of that, as Zatu goes down, that was a really nice play by Rodriblutar. But now this puts the Aerodactyl in U-turn range, I believe. So I imagine we'll just see U-turn here from Eternally. Yup. And now I'll probably see the Heliolisk come in, but instead we see the Incineroar instantly enough. And now this is a big turn because Slowbro dies, it's Z ground. Slowbro dies to Z Earthquake. And Vanillux probably takes a fuck ton if not dies too. And there's no way he goes to Torterra, although Torterra does the ensuing Flare Blitz. But I think Eternally was scared of the Aerodactyl coming in on that, which, I mean, could lose the game if he comes in on any attack. So he went for the Darkest Lariat, and the Vanillux comes in and eats it, and then could kill him with Blizzard, which is unfortunate for Eternally. I feel as if they killed on the Vanillux on this turn, he probably could have won the game. But I mean, that's a hard play to make because if he goes Arrow and Earthquake, then you're kind of screwed. Now Eternally and Rodri's timer is both low, and it's one of those tense games. The U-turn's going to knock out the Vanillux. Helios comes on in. Really nice momentum plays all game by Eternally thus far. We see the Hyper Voice to trade pretty much 50% damage on Torterra for its life. And now I imagine we just see the Incineroar come in and just take out the Torterra. Yep, takes out the Torterra here. And now we're going to see the Aerodactyl come in. And now it's not a choice band Aerodactyl, keep in mind. Seeing as it's a non-stat pursuit on the switch out, there's no way it's doing 17%. So if I'm Eternally here, I always switch out to the Passimian. Like, I feel like if it was Z-Fly or anything that could kill it, then it would have already went for that move. So I think that Passimian is safe. You Passimian, you U-turn, you kind of checkmate. Because you get Passimian on here, U-turn either kills the Aerodactyl, although Eternally apparently said it was like a bulky one and it was a roll. I'm not too sure. But either you kill this, and then you Incineroar the Slowbro, or you turn on the Slowbro switch, and then Incineroar does that. So like it's kind of foolproof from there. But I think seeing as Eternaly's timer was low and he probably was still scared of the Z move, he instead foddered the Incineroar here, and that gives Rodriblutar the game. And yeah, knockoff, just because I would have went for U-turn there as well. Apparently, U-turn was a roll and it was like a bulky Aerodactyl. I don't know what the fuck Rodri's running, but I think U-turn was probably better there too. But regardless, the game's just going to end. One slack off is enough to where you should be able to eat two, unless this gets crit max damage, and it does not. And the second skull should take it out. So that's a 1-0 tight victory for Rodriblutar. Overall, really tight game. Rodri didn't make many plays besides that one pursuit with Aerodactyl. In fact, I actually disagree with the one time he didn't recover up his Torterra. I think that put him on the back foot a bit and kind of enabled the ladder sequence where Torterra, not Torterra, the opposing Steelix got racks up, kind of pretty much led to the Golbat and Sylvia still being worn out when he pretty much could have just sat there and maneuvered around in a fashion to where he wasn't really threatened too much. But at the same time, Eternally also played the aggressive mid game quite well. And in the end game, it kind of came to bite him in the butt, where Rodri was just a bit more on top of things, despite of the low time. And I think the higher level of experience Rodriblutar had really played in his favor there. So, all things considered, really tight game and well played, even though I think both sides thought he made like one mistake. And I think Eternally's ended up just costing him at the end. And you kind of got to just shake your head and say, okay, it didn't go my way, but I think I'm going to move forward strong if you're Eternally. And if you're Rodri, I mean, hell, you're clearly playing well. It's just your teams are a bit odd. So that's that. Really good game, though, even if there were some things that could have been done differently. And I think I hope to see many more games like this. This is Finch. Peace.